My family excluded me from 4 weddings my entire childhood. Now I got married and didn't invite any of my siblings, and they threw an anti-wedding dinner the same night to cry together. I'm 28 years old. I work as a freelance graphic designer, and I need to tell this story because I've been losing sleep for weeks thinking about everything that happened with my wedding, or rather, with my family and my wedding. The thing is, I basically cut ties with my 4 older siblings, and my parents are making me feel like the worst person in the world. But honestly, I don't know if I actually did something so terrible, or if I'm finally setting the boundaries I should have set years ago. I guess to understand all of this, I have to start from the beginning, when I was just a little girl who didn't understand why she wasn't enough for her own family. I'm the youngest of 5 siblings, and when I say there are significant age gaps, I mean there's 18 years between my oldest brother Daniel and me. Between Benjamin and me, there's 16 years. Between Lauren and me, there's 13 years. And between Nathan and me, there's 11 years. I basically grew up as an only child because by the time I had any awareness, they were all in college or living their adult lives. My parents had me when my mom was 42. I wasn't planned at all. And although they never told me directly, I always felt like my arrival was more of an awkward surprise than a blessing. My siblings were practically adults already. My parents were ready for that life stage where the kids leave and you can travel and do whatever you want. And suddenly, there I was, crying at 3 in the morning and needing diapers when they thought they were done with all that. The first thing I remember clearly, and this is going to sound harsh, but it's the truth, is Daniel's wedding when I was 10 years old. He married his college girlfriend, a girl named Jessica, who was super elegant and sophisticated, and they decided to have a completely child-free wedding. I mean, I understand the concept now that I'm an adult. You know, you want an elegant ceremony without kids running around everywhere screaming. I get it. But I was 10, and I was his sister, his only younger sister, and they told me I couldn't go. My mom left me with the neighbor, Mrs. Martinez, who was like 70 and smelled weird. And I remember sitting in her living room watching a Disney movie I'd already seen 1,000 times while my entire family was at that wedding celebrating. I cried for hours that night, literally until I fell asleep on Mrs. Martinez's couch. And when my parents got back at like 2 in the morning, my mom just patted me on the head and told me I'd understand someday. 2 years later, when I was 12, Benjamin got married. Benjamin was always the quiet, serious brother, the one who studied engineering and never talked much. His wedding was also child-free. By that point, I was already in middle school. I was super responsible for my age. I helped around the house, got good grades, never caused problems. I begged my mom to talk to Benjamin. I told her I'd be so well-behaved that they wouldn't even notice I was there. My mom just told me, "It's his special day, Sophie. Don't make this about you." And that's when I started to feel like something was wrong with me. You know? Like I was the problem. Like my very existence was an inconvenience everyone would rather ignore. But wait, because it gets worse. When I was 15, Lauren got married. Lauren was the only older sister I had, and I honestly thought maybe, just maybe she'd be different. I had this stupid childhood fantasy where I imagined she'd ask me to be her bridesmaid, that we'd share that special moment between sisters, all that stuff. Instead, Lauren made a 16 and over rule for her wedding. 16. I was 15, literally 8 months away from turning 16. I begged her. And when I say I begged, I mean it seriously. I got on my knees and everything. I told her I'd wait outside if necessary, that I just wanted to see her walk down the aisle. Lauren looked at me like I was an annoying fly and told me her bridesmaids were already chosen, and her wedding wasn't a family circus. I protested. I got angry. I yelled at my parents that it was unfair, and you know what happened? They punished me. 6 months, without going out with friends, without my phone, without anything, because according to my dad, I was being a selfish child who couldn't respect adults' decisions. The last one was Nathan. When I was 17. By that point, I was already in my senior year of high school. I was practically an adult. You know what I mean? Nathan did his wedding child-free too. But here's what really broke my heart. My cousin Amanda, who was 18, was invited. We were in the same high school. We literally graduated the same year, but she was a year older than me. I asked Nathan why Amanda could go and I couldn't, and he just shrugged and told me 18 was the limit they'd set. He didn't even try to soften it or apologize. It was just like, "That's the way it is, Sophie. Deal with it." I remember seeing the photos on Facebook afterwards. All my siblings together, my cousins, my entire family, celebrating, and I was at home eating pizza with my mom, who kept me company because I guess she felt bad, though not bad enough to defend my presence at any of those weddings. For years, I swallowed that shit. Sorry for the word, but there's no other way to describe it. I swallowed the feeling of rejection, the sensation that I wasn't important enough, that I would always be the annoying little sister nobody really wanted around. My parents never fought for me. They never told any of my siblings, "Hey, she's your sister. Maybe you should make an exception." They just kept telling me over and over that I had to be understanding, that I had to respect others' decisions, that someday when I was an adult I'd see it differently. And the thing is, I do see it differently now, but not in the way they expected. What I see is that I spent my entire childhood and teenage years feeling invisible in my own family, and they were totally fine with that as long as I didn't cause problems. Fast forward like 6 years. I met Marcus when I was 24 at an art exhibition where I was showing some of my designs. He's a photographer. He's 31 now. And from day one, he was different from anyone I'd ever met. I told him about my family like 3 months into dating, and I expected him to tell me the same thing as everyone else, that I had to be more understanding, that they were their weddings and they could do whatever they wanted. Instead, Marcus looked at me with that expression he gets when something strikes him as genuinely messed up and told me, "That's bullshit, Sophie. Period. There's no way to sugarcoat it, and your family should have fought for you." I think it was the first time in my life someone validated what I'd been feeling all those years, and I literally started crying right there in his apartment while we were eating Chinese food from those cardboard boxes. Marcus and I got engaged like a year and a half ago. It was perfect. Super casual, on the beach during a sunset, walk, nothing ostentatious, but very us. And almost immediately after we posted the ring photos on Instagram, my mom called me all excited talking about the wedding, about how all my siblings would be there, and it would be the first time the whole family would be together in years, and basically assuming I was going to have this big family wedding where we'd finally all celebrate together. And as I listened to her talk, something clicked in my head. I hung up the phone, turned to Marcus, and told him, "I'm not going to invite them," and he just nodded and said, "I completely understand." We decided to do a small, intimate wedding, like 40 people max, in a beautiful garden we found outside the city. Only people we really cared about, close friends, some cousins I did have a good relationship with, Marcus's parents, who are the sweetest people in the world, and my best friend Maya as my maid of honor. Maya has been my rock since college. She knows this whole story and has been there for me in every difficult moment. I didn't include any of my 4 siblings on the guest list, not their wives or husbands either. I only sent invitations to my parents because, I don't know, I guess part of me still had that stupid hope that they'd been my parents my whole life and maybe they deserved to be there. Though, honestly, I wasn't even sure I wanted them to come. My mom found out my siblings weren't invited like 3 months before the wedding. She called my cell, and when I answered, she was literally screaming. She called me resentful, bitter, told me I was being spiteful, and that after everything the family had done for me, this was how I repaid them. I asked her what exactly they'd done for me besides exclude me my entire life, and she just kept repeating that I was tearing the family apart, that how could I be so cruel? That my siblings were devastated. Devastated. The word she used was devastated. I told her, "Really? They're devastated? How do you think I felt during 4 weddings, where I clearly wasn't important enough to be there?" My mom went silent for a second and then told me that had been different, that I was a child and didn't understand, and that now I was being immature by not being able to get over the past. The family group chat, which I honestly rarely checked anyway, exploded. Daniel wrote something super passive-aggressive about how family is forever, and he hoped I'd reconsider my selfish decisions before it was too late. Benjamin didn't say anything, which was typical of him. Lauren was the most vocal. She wrote like 3 long paragraphs about how she'd always treated me well, that she'd bought me birthday presents and given me advice when I needed it, and that now I was repaying her by excluding her from the most important day of my life. Nathan wrote something short about being disappointed but respecting my decision, though he clearly didn't respect it at all because then my mom told me he'd cried when he found out. I left the group chat, without responding to any of them. I blocked notifications and basically acted like it didn't exist. My parents showed up at my apartment unannounced like 2 weeks later. Marcus was working and I was home editing some designs for a client when I heard insistent knocking on the door. I opened it and there they both were. My dad with that serious face he always has, and my mom with red eyes like she'd been crying the whole way there. They came in without asking and started telling me we needed to talk about the wedding, that this had gone too far, that the family was suffering because of me. My dad called me childish, told me I was acting like a rebellious teenager when I should be acting like an adult who's about to get married. I asked them if ever, at any point, they'd defended my right to be at my siblings' weddings, if they'd ever thought that maybe, just maybe, they should have included me in those important family moments. My mom started crying harder and told me I didn't understand how hard it had been for them to raise 5 kids with so many years between us, that they'd done the best they could. I asked them to leave. I literally had to say, "Please leave my apartment," before they finally left, with my mom sobbing in the hallway. After that, the extended family calls started. Aunts and uncles I hadn't seen in years were suddenly calling me to tell me I was making a mistake, that family is the most important thing, that I was going to regret this for the rest of my life. One of my aunts, my mom's sister, sent me a really long text message talking about forgiveness and how holding grudges would only hurt me. I blocked her number. I blocked like 15 numbers during those weeks. Maya told me I was doing the right thing, to stand firm, and Marcus basically became my emotional bodyguard, intercepting calls and messages when I couldn't deal with them. The wedding day was perfect. And when I say perfect, I don't mean everything went according to plan or there were no small problems, because obviously the florist arrived late and one of the speakers didn't work for like 20 minutes, but I mean, it was perfect in the ways that mattered. I was surrounded by people who genuinely wanted me there. People who had chosen to be in my life and who I'd chosen to have in mine. The garden was beautiful, small, and cozy, with those little lights hanging between the trees. Maya cried during her entire maid of honor speech, talking about our friendship and how happy she was to see me with someone like Marcus. Marcus's parents welcomed me into their family in such a warm way that it literally made me cry. They told me they'd always wanted a daughter and they considered me theirs now. Marcus looked at me during the vows with that expression that makes me feel seen and loved in a way I'd never experienced in my family. I didn't think about my siblings once that day, and that in itself was liberating in a way I can't fully explain. My parents came, but left early, like an hour after the ceremony. My mom barely spoke to me, and my dad just stood in a corner looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. They said goodbye quickly. My mom gave me a cold hug and told me she hoped I'd be happy, in that tone that clearly meant the opposite. I didn't care. I danced with Marcus, laughed with my friends, ate cake, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I should be, with the people I should be with. I found out like a week after the wedding that my mom and Lauren organized an alternative dinner the same night as my wedding. They invited all my siblings, their spouses, some cousins, basically a small family event to, according to what I heard from a cousin who told me, support each other during this difficult time, which is ridiculous, you know? Like my wedding was a funeral or something. Apparently they spent the night talking about how disappointed they were in me and how family used to be important to our generation, but now everyone's so selfish. My cousin, who's cool and didn't agree with any of it, sent me messages describing everything, and I could only laugh at how absurd it all was. They organized an anti-event of my wedding on my actual wedding day. The weeks after were more of the same. My mom would call crying. My siblings sent passive-aggressive messages on cousins' birthdays or any family occasion that came up. Lauren wrote to Marcus directly at one point, trying to convince him to make me see reason, and Marcus basically responded that he supported me completely. And maybe they should reflect on why I'd made this decision in the first place. She obviously didn't respond well to that, and now Marcus is also on her list of terrible people. Like a month ago, Lauren commented on our wedding photos that Marcus posted on Facebook, something about how they looked very casual, and it was sad we hadn't had a more appropriate celebration with the whole family there to make it special. Marcus deleted the comment and blocked her. I'd already blocked her on everything since weeks before the wedding, but she found ways to keep inserting herself into our life. My mom showed up at my apartment again, without Marcus this time because she knew he wouldn't let her in, and started with the same speech about family and forgiveness and all those things. This time I stood firm and didn't even open the door. I just spoke to her through the closed door and told her I needed space, and when I was ready to talk to her, I'd contact her. I haven't. I'm not ready, and I don't know if I ever will be. I blocked all my siblings after that. All 4 of them, plus their spouses, plus several aunts, uncles, and cousins who kept sending guilt trip messages. My phone is much quieter now, and so is my life. Marcus and I moved to a new apartment 2 weeks ago, a bigger one because we're thinking about starting our own family soon, and we didn't give my parents the address. It sounds cold. And maybe it is. But I need that space to be able to breathe, without feeling like I constantly have to justify my decisions or defend myself from people who never defended me. But the thing is, I don't regret it. I still have moments where I feel guilty, where that little voice in my head tells me maybe I was too harsh, that maybe I should have given them another chance. But then I remember that one 0-year-old girl crying on Mrs. Martinez's couch, and the one 5-year-old teenager begging to be included in her only sister's wedding, and the one 7-year-old looking at photos of everyone happy at a celebration she was deliberately excluded from. And then I remember I don't owe them anything. That I spent enough time in my life feeling like a burden, like something they tolerated rather than celebrated. Marcus reminds me of this too. When I have my moments of doubt, he tells me the family you choose is just as valid as the family you're born into, and that we're building our own now, on our own terms. Maya visited me yesterday and we were drinking wine and laughing about how ridiculous that whole alternative dinner situation was. She told me she was proud of me for standing firm, that it takes a lot of courage to do what I did. I don't know if it was courage or just exhaustion from years of feeling less than, but either way, it feels good to be on the other side of this. Marcus and I are planning a trip to Europe to celebrate our first anniversary, something I never could have done if I'd kept allowing my family to emotionally manipulate me and make me feel guilty for setting boundaries. Sometimes I wonder if any of them really understand why I made this decision, if they'll ever stop to think, even for a second, about how their actions affected me during all those years. Probably not. I'll probably always be the villain in their version of this story, the resentful sister who couldn't get over the past and who tore the family apart out of pure spite. And maybe they're right about the resentment part, because I'm not going to lie and say part of me didn't feel some satisfaction in telling them no, in finally having the power to exclude them from something important to me the same way they excluded me during so many years. But mostly I just feel peace and relief and a kind of liberation I hadn't felt before. I don't have to carry the weight of trying to earn a place in a family that never made me feel like I belonged there anyway. I don't know what the relationship with my family will be like in the future, if there'll even be any relationship at all. Part of me hopes we can eventually have some honest conversation about all this, that maybe with time they can see things from my perspective. But honestly, I'm not holding my breath waiting for that. I'm focusing on my marriage, on my work, on the friendships that do value my presence, on building the life I want with the person I chose. And if that makes me selfish or resentful in my biological family's eyes, then I guess I can live with that. It's better to be selfish and at peace than understanding and miserable. I've got that clear now.